All right, boat lovers, the moment you've been waiting for. It's the big Q&A week. So I've got my gorgeous wife Amanda with me today. Maple's running around like a crazy dog somewhere. So Amanda's going to ask me a bunch of questions, and we're going to try and answer at least some of the questions you guys have been sending in. So I'm going to hand it over to Amanda. She's going to kick it off with a question. Well, say hello to the boat lovers.
Hello everybody.
Yes, she's reluctantly been dragged into this. So she's going to ask me some questions, and alrighty,
Okay.
take one, here we go.
Okay, need glasses. Okay.
I do too, but I'm just going to struggle on, like I do with the boat build.
Okay, so the first question from viewers is, have you built boats before?
Have I built boats before? Well, okay. The short answer is yes. I'm not a professional boat builder, I'm just a hobby builder, but it's been a big hobby for 30 plus years, 35 years. A lot of restoration on wooden boats mostly. And also, after restoring several boats, I did build a boat similar to this one, but a 30-footer. Same type of construction, and that was a flat bottom, and I did that quite a while ago. So I'm going to run through a little list here of the boats that I've had, and hopefully I can find some pictures to put up and show you guys that as well. So my first boat was called Ibis, and it was a 30-foot carvel hull boat that a guy built for his son when his son went away to the First World War in 1914, and unfortunately his son never returned. So his dad, who was a carpenter, built this lovely boat over 3 or 4 years, and unfortunately his son never got to see it. But I was lucky enough to have it way down the track, and I did a lot of work on that. Full restoration, new cabin work, superstructure, you know, new ribs, all that sort of stuff. So that's where I started to cut my teeth on my boat building. After Ibis, I had a 24-foot boat called Water Witch, which was given to me in a very sorry state, and she was a little sort of walnut shell shaped hull, again carvel hull, and I fully restored her, including splining her, so putting all these, gluing the splines between all the planks, fiberglass on the outside with a clear finish, and I did that about 25 years ago, and she is still going well and looking great today. After that, I got a 40-foot ex-army workboat called the Silver Cloud, which had been converted to a crayfishing boat, and it was a heavily constructed boat, as all the military boats are. And I sailed this boat for my first time at sea for a 3-day trip from Victoria around the coast back to South Australia. Did that boat up a little bit and sold it. And then after that, I bought a 48-foot 1942 RAAF search and rescue boat. So that was, RAAF is Royal Australian Air Force, and these boats were also known as crash boats, used during the Second World War to go out and rescue pilots who had come down in a crashed plane. And that was a fabulous boat, double diagonal planked in plywood, and I did a lot of restoration on that, a lot of hull work, cabin work, etc. Learning more as I went along. What did I get after that? After that we had, I bought a 40-foot, again an ex-military boat called Mollyhawk, which was a supply boat, an army supply boat, and had seen action in World War II as well. She was also, let me see, double diagonal planked, had a lovely Detroit 671 diesel in it, and I completely did that up. In fact, I bought that boat very, you remember Mollyhawk?
I do.
After Amanda and I had first met, it was just after that that I flew to Sydney with Amanda, and we checked out this boat and bought it, and you know, I thought, great, found the woman of my dreams. She likes old crusty old boats, and she's going to help me restore it. So that was fantastic. And it was actually the day of 9/11 Twin Tower attacks,
yeah,
which we didn't know about until that evening. But I took tools and all sorts of things on the plane, big long screwdriver, a torch, a hammer, all sorts of stuff. Nobody asked any questions. And then late that evening, after we returned to Adelaide, I saw on the late news about the Twin Tower attacks. Amanda had already gone to sleep. I woke up and said, my God, look, what a day. And so that's how I remember the purchase of that boat, with both fond and tragic memories.
And what did you do one after?
Amanda does like to tell people that I went away for a couple of days during the restoration, and while I was away, Amanda spent all this time sanding the beautiful wheelhouse ceiling to expose this lovely cedar, I think it was cedar tongue and groove panelling on the top.
Heat gun.
And then, yes, so using a heat gun, sander, all that stuff. And then Amanda had to go away. And while I was here, still working on the boat, I thought, oh, I don't want to finish sanding that ceiling. So I covered it up with brand new strip planking, which didn't look great. And of course, Amanda came back and she wasn't thrilled that her 3 days of sanding efforts had been covered up. Anyway, we're still married, all happy, all good. So after that, I sold that, and then I built my first boat from scratch, like this one. Bought the plywood, and I'll show you some pictures of that. I called it Gargoyle because it was not the prettiest boat. Oh, you think, yeah, so, I mean, you think I'm pretty. What can I say? You know. Anyway, so Gargoyle was a 30-foot flat-bottom boat with twin 20 horsepower outboards on it, and she chuffed along really nicely at 6 knots, which is all you need in the river. And we had that for about 4 years until such time as we sold that one. Yep. And we bought a 44-foot fiberglass hull teak superstructure Gold Island 44, which is like your Grand Banks Island Gypsy style cruiser. And Amanda and I lived on that boat for about 18 months, cruising around what's called the Coral Coast, which is the coast off Brisbane in Queensland. And we spent the first 6 months living at a marina, renovating the boat.
7 days a week.
Like 2 rats in the shoebox, I have to say. And as I say, we're still together. So that if you want to test your marriage, live in a boat for 6 months while renovating it. We did that. It was fantastic. We cruised around the coast and had a great time, and eventually sold that boat, and we moved back to South Australia. After that, I bought a plastic boat, what my wooden boat friends like to call melted ice cream containers. So that's your fiberglass rounded finished boats. Now, this was a Maxim 41 SCA, so with the aft cabin, with twin 330 horsepower Cummins diesels in it. And it looked like a fish out of water, you know, a sea boat being in the sleepy old river. But we gave the skiers and the wakeboarders something to look at. We had that for about 4 years and then sold it. I didn't have to do it up. It was a 1998 boat, so it was fantastic.
You bought it sight unseen.
Yes, we bought it sight unseen. I'll get into that a bit later. After that, I bought a houseboat. So I broke my golden rule of always having proper pointy boats, and I thought there must be something to these houseboats because everybody's got one. So we bought a lovely old 1990s houseboat, which was really, you know, old world creature comforts and sort of coziness. You didn't have to be precious with it. And we had that for about 4 years until finally we sold it to do some things around the house here, and eventually during COVID, yes. Yeah. And then after that, I've started building this boat. So I think that covers most of the boats I've had. I might have missed some, but that gives you an idea of my boat building history. As I say, I'm not a builder, but I've been restoring and repairing and working with boats for 30 or 40 years. I did work for 6 months with a professional boat builder on similar construction to this, and I got a lot of tips there, but most of it's been trial and error, and I've got to the stage where I'm comfortable to build this long skinny girl here. Alrighty, now, most of the answers to the rest of the questions are going to be way quicker than that. Back to Amanda, hit me with another question, huh?
Okay, so another question is...
if we can hear you over the birds and the crows. Again, sorry, our nature here is amazing. It's kind of a semi-rainy day and all the birds are just going nuts as usual.
Okay, so another question is, why have you built a Dragonfly with a flat bottom?
Okay, yes, okay, so many people ask me that. Why the flat bottom boat? All right, the simple answer is, there's 2 simple answers. One is ease of construction, but more importantly, number 2 is where I'm going to be using the boat. I've built this boat specifically to use on the Murray River here in South Australia and through to Victoria. And the river is very calm. You know, the biggest waves come from a wakeboard boat going past, certainly in most places. And the Murray River, since they put all the lock systems in, like a series of dams down the river system, there's very little flow in the river. I mean, you can float around in a life jacket out the back of your boat for 10 minutes and you've barely moved. So it's very calm. But that's created a lot of shallow areas and a lot of sandbars. And so to cruise up the river, especially in summers where there's a little bit of drought, it's so shallow that if you've got a normal boat, even say 2'6" draft or more, you're very restricted as to where you can go, and in particular, where you can pull into a riverbank. Like you might be able to manoeuvre down the river channel in the deepest part, but then if you want to pull up on the side of the river, as you go into to the riverbank, you know, it gets really shallow and you just can't get in there. So I've built this specifically to only draw about that much in the water, a little more with the back engines down, but of course being outboards they can kick up. So that's the reason, ease of construction and shallow draft for the quiet waters of the Murray River, which has a lot of shallow areas. Okay.
Okay, so the next one is, are you going to fiberglass the bottom and the superstructure?
Okay, common question. For those of you who have watched the videos from the very start, which should be all of you, I know. I built this boat with the bottom being like a big surfboard to start with, and I did fiberglass the bottom heavily with double diagonal biaxial heavy fiberglass cloth, but then we turned the boat over. So the bottom has already been fiberglassed up to the chine on the edge, and it's wrapped around that chine up to that sort of edge that you can see. So yes, the bottom is heavily fiberglassed, and the next job is to fiberglass all the outside of the boat in a lighter cloth, and that cloth will go down the sides of the boat and wrap around the existing glass. So the short answer is yes, it's already partly glassed. By the end of it, it will be completely fiberglassed on the outside.
Okay, so someone has asked,
Yes.
and I'm intrigued to see how you're going to respond to this. Does Amanda help with the boat build, and what role does she play?
Oh, wow. Okay, does she help with the boat build? Well,
No.
yes and no, it depends how you look at it. You'll probably notice that most of my videos are reasonably politically correct. Well, I try not to offend anyone. And let's say that's down to Amanda's guidance. Because if it wasn't for my steady guidance of my darling wife here, they'd probably have a completely different viewership, because my political correctness is not great. Because I'm old and crusty, you know, and I say the wrong thing very often, and it's very lucky for you guys that I can edit out all the bungles that I make. But Amanda keeps me on track with things, and sometimes I'll say to her, can I say this, can I say whatever, and she goes, are you kidding? No, Steve, you know, what century are you living in? So she plays a big role there. She's a great motivator, loves boats. It's great to have a partner who enjoys boating as much as I do. So there's fantastic motivation comes from Amanda. I might be really tired and exhausted, and she said, well, why don't you just get that little bit done today or whatever, which is fantastic. We run ideas, and Amanda is a building designer, a designer generally, interior designer and building designer, and she's done some amazing homes and commercial buildings and wineries, all sorts of things. And she helped me with the interior design of the boat. I initially just had that central corridor going all the way through the boat, and it's Amanda's very clever influence of having the saloon door offset so we could have that L-shaped settee in the saloon, and quite a few little things like that where she's really helped, and with the size of spaces and things, she helps immensely.
This is the first boat that we've had together that I've not physically helped with you though, because we've always done stuff together on all the other boats. This is the first one that I haven't actually given you any help.
That's true. Amanda has helped on the other boats. When I was building Gargoyle, the one I built from scratch, Amanda did tons of sanding and mixing all the glue for me. She actually got a reaction to the powder from the glue and started to get eczema and things up and down her arms every time she was mixing glue, but she stuck with it when we got the boat finished. So, and she's helped me with the other boats, like full on renovating, you know, dirty clothes, scraping out dirty hulls, sawing masks, all the gear, you know, so she's done heaps. And this is the first boat, as she says, that she hasn't helped me with in a physical sense. But she is inside working away, helping fund the boat. So she's working 5 days a week. She's very much in demand, and I happily spend her money to get the boat done. Now,
Oh my God, it's really
speak up nice and loud.
Okay, we should have had our microphones on.
Well, I've only got one, so that he may not.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. All right, why have you chosen outboard engines instead of an inboard diesel, and why did you decide to enclose the outboards under the aft deck?
Okay, so a lot of people ask me that. I even got a question about that again today, and thank you for that question. It's a good one. Look, I love diesel engines, you know, reliability, economy, the whole thing, the rumble of the diesel, all of that, and particularly on the the river here, you know, we can go some really long distances, and reliability is important. But there's a few reasons. In our summer here, we can get to 40 degrees, 45 degrees, and you know, if you're up the river and you're going for a, you know, 2 or 3 hour cruise on a 40-degree day, and then you pull up because you want to have a quiet evening on the riverbank, with an inboard diesel engine, you can't even sit in the boat because the heat from the engine is going to last for hours and hours. It's like sitting in front of a radiator. So it takes away all the pleasure of that beautiful cool evening or afternoon. And so that's one reason, is the heat factor, the room and the noise inside a very narrow boat. Another reason is that if we have a diesel engine with shaft drive, nice big prop, it takes away the shallow draft of the boat. So again, we're restricted where we can go. So by having outboards, they're on the back of the boat, so we can cruise all day, we can pull up somewhere, and the temperature inside the boat is the same as when we started, lovely and cool. The other thing is I can kick the outboards up. If we're going through a shallow area, kick them up a little bit so we can go through somewhere maybe only 12 inches deep. Not much point building a shallow draft boat and then putting a great big scare gun prop underneath it. Why have I put the engines under the aft deck? Well, one is just for visuals. I don't want people to know what engine it's got. It's kind of fun. It looks a little bit old worldy, this boat, and people won't know what it's powered by. But also for noise. I'm going to soundproof those areas, the engine bays, as much as I can. And so the 4-strokes are not going to be mega noisy anyway, and we should be able to sit in that back area cruising along and should be able to have a conversation without too much noise. The other reason is I don't want the boat to be any longer than it has to be, and if I built it like it is now and then I put these great big outboard pods on the back, we're going out another 4 feet or something. So that's kind of the answer. I've also got that lovely aft deck area to use as a backyard, to sunbake on, to sit on, have barbecues, entertain, and the space underneath, it's really a void, so might as well put the engines under there. 4-stroke, high thrust Yamahas, 60 horsepower. The high thrust means they've got a different gearbox, so they're not geared for speed like a speedboat, but they get great push and thrust. So I'm aiming for really good manoeuvrability when I'm mooring and that sort of thing, with, you know, with 2 engines, 1 forward, 1 back, etc. I'm hoping I can get 8 knots or more. Now I may get more. A lot of people have said I will, but I would be happy with that. 6 knots is, you know, your standard displacement fishing boat speed of just chugging along. But with a skinny flat bottom boat and 2 60 horsepower outboards, I think we'll get 8 knots or more, and I'm going to be thrilled with that. So hopefully that answers that question.
You did exactly that design in gargoyle, so you
Yes,
trialled it before and it worked really
Trialled
well.
it before. There were no issues with air getting to the outboards. Cooling, of course, is done from the water. I'll be putting a couple little vents on the side to make sure there is some airflow so the engines can draw air in, but they've got the big holes at the back of them anyway. And as I say, I've already trialled this system and it worked great on my last boat.
Okay, next question is, will you have a rear anchor?
Okay, interesting. We'll carry an anchor just for the sake of having one on the boat, but in the river, hardly any of the houseboats have an anchor. Most of the river cruisers like this, if they've got one, they don't use it. Unless they break down and they just don't want to drift off somewhere. As I say, there's barely any current. The wind might push you somewhere, so you can drop an anchor, but we'll just have one in the front for emergencies. There's no need for one anywhere else. One of the issues is that a lot of the Murray River, because the flow is so slow, there are meters of silt on the bottom, and a lot of that is a bluey, thick clay. And so you can drop an anchor down into there, and it might go 2 meters down into the mud. You can't pull it back out again. If you do manage to get it out, it's covered in big hunks of clay. You can't get it back onto your boat, and 99 times out of 100, it is just simply not required. Even mooring front on into a riverbank, where you would normally put a stern anchor out to hold your stern away from the bank and all of that, it's not required because the flow is so slow that we can just push against the riverbank and put a couple of stern lines in and hold ourselves in place. So we'll carry an anchor, but not really necessary. We certainly don't need one at the back. So that's that question.
Okay.
No anchors. 1 anchor hidden away.
Question from people who enjoy your music. Is it available on Spotify or CD? What did you do before you were building Dragonfly?
Wow, it's like politics, isn't it? It's one question in 3 parts. Unlike a politician, I'll answer them fairly directly. Okay, my music, everything that you hear on my videos, I write and record myself. I do a lot of the vocals, I play guitar, drums, bass, a few other odds and sods. Drums is my main instrument. And I use a few samples, of course, as well. But no, my music is not available commercially anywhere yet. I'd love to put a CD out and make my music available on Spotify, but I haven't got any time because I'm building a boat and I barely get time to put these little sample tracks together that you hear. And that's all they are. They're just little demos. They haven't been mixed yet. I just throw ideas down. Usually I'll put something together in an evening and then you're hearing it on the next video. But when the boat is finished, I am seriously looking at doing a CD, an album, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to release it on vinyl and CD, and it'll be on Spotify. So that is a project to follow this one. I am considering just putting my demo tracks together as a compilation on YouTube, and that way all these people that ask, can they hear it, at least I can get some music to you guys, and I'd love to get your feedback from those, considering they'll just be demo tracks and ideas for a forthcoming album. What did I do before the boat build? All right, I'm retired, I'm 68 years old, so technically in Australia you can retire at 67, you know, and get pension and all that. I retired a few years earlier because before the boat build, I was in the boating industry. I ran a boat import business where I assisted people from all over Australia to find and import boats from all over the world. Japan, Hong Kong, South Africa, America, I don't know.
Is there Croatia?
Yeah, Croatia, anywhere else. Primarily in the last few years of running that business, I had the business, I started, it was my own business, I ran it for 15 years, and the last 10 years were primarily bringing boats in from the USA. And I would find boats, price them up, get them surveyed, inspected, etc., help the buyers negotiate a deal, and then I would oversee delivery to the port, customs, quarantine, shipping, all that sort of stuff. And I sent hundreds of boats all over Australia. I never saw a boat, never met a customer. I did it all from my phone and a laptop, and it was a great experience. Never had an insurance claim, and it was an amazing time. And I did that all, as I say, from my phone and my laptop, working from home. And while I was cruising around on that boat in Queensland, I took my business, my work with me everywhere. Prior to that, being a musician, I had music teaching centres. Again, over about 15 years, I had a couple of teaching centres. One of them was Australia's largest music teaching school. I had probably about 300 students a week, mostly school kids coming in after school, about 12 teaching staff who were all sort of subcontracting teachers that came and went. And that was a fabulous business where I got to act in that lovely relaxed way of being a muso. You know, I could just wear my jeans and t-shirts to work, and it was very casual and relaxed. I was playing in bands, which I could still do while I ran that business. The hours were terrific. I'd open at 2 in the afternoon and go through at about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I could still go and play in a band after then. I've done some touring in bands, so I could tour around Australia while somebody else was looking after things, and I had that for a long time. They're really the two main businesses I had. I also used to write music teaching books. I've written about 8 drum teaching books, which have been published in 3 languages, English, German and French. And although these days most things are just on YouTube and the internet, you can still walk into a lot of music shops around the world and you'll find a drum teaching book by Steve Shear. You know, that was a long time ago. I lived on the royalties for a while and did a lot of that writing while I lived on a boat. Again, sitting in a computer, writing, playing, doing all of that. So that's a little bit of my background.
You have to tell them with the award and the inflatable drum.
Oh, way back before most of you were born. Way back in Australia, we had a show called The Inventors, and it was a national television show. Well, I designed and invented an inflatable drum kit, and I was inspired by the original Beatles cartoon where Ringo as a cartoon, would let his drums down and they'd go down like a balloon. And I actually made an inflatable drum kit, which was quite a serious project. And I won the local show of the inventors here in South Australia, and then in the national show in the finals at the end of the season, I came second in the finals. And as such, the ABC here sent my drum kit over to Geneva for the Geneva International Convention of Inventions, and I won a silver medal there for the category of teaching aids and instruments of the arts. And with that I got some prize money and a beautiful silver medal, etc. And at one stage Yamaha was going to produce my drums. I've been over to NAMM, to the, in the States, to trade shows and things, and had meetings with the owner of the Pearl Company. Yes, so that was quite a journey. And even Pick Withers from Dire Straits, I met the guys from Dire Straits during my travels and my music sort of career. And one of their concerts here in South Australia, they were kind enough to let me set my drums up on stage during their sound check, and their drummer at that stage during their Sultans of Swing tour, etc., Romeo and Juliet those days. Pick Withers, their drummer, played my drums on stage, and we did lots of sound checks, and he wrote me a beautiful full-page letter about how good they sounded. And I did that with quite a few different bands and different people, but that was a bit of a highlight. And Martin Offler was great, and he thought they were great, and we hung around for about 3 days together, and I really enjoyed it. Alrighty, so that's a bit of my past. It all really just revolves around music and boats. I've always been a drummer. That was my main instrument. In the last years, I've played more guitar and other things, but I'm basically a rock drummer from many years ago who's diversified into other areas. Love my boats and my music, and I try and combine the two. Whew, that was a long answer to a short question. All right.
Good?
Yep,
okay.
good to go.
Awesome. Okay, so what are you going to do about heating and cooling? Will you have air conditioning?
Okay, all right. Yes, I'm going to have heating and cooling. I'm going to have one of those diesel heaters. I've already got one because I bought one for another boat that I didn't use. Very economical, quiet, lovely, sort of dry heat in the boat. Beautiful. For cooling, I'm going to use the truck air cons. They're a 12-volt system, 11,000 BTU. I'm going to have two of those tucked in, one either side of the wheelhouse at the top. That's where those louvers are. And they're just for cooling. One is going to be directed down into the front bedroom. And if it's efficient enough, I will at times redirect that into the wheelhouse. The other aircon will be directed back into the saloon and the galley. That's the short answer. Very simple systems, 12 volt, and I'm going to try and get enough solar power and battery power to be able to run at least one of those aircons through a hot night. If I run out of power, I'm just going to get myself a little portable Jenny that I can plug in to keep my batteries charged. And if that's a bit noisy, what a lot of people do on the river here, they get a long extension cord, they set their little 2K Jenny up on the riverbank somewhere and run a 50-metre cord down to the boat. You can't hear the Jenny and you've got full power. So yes, I will have aircon and heating, separate units.
Okay. Okay, this is a bit of a doozy question. So, how do you plan to get this boat out of the shed and into the water? Okay,
very common question. Yes, okay, so the boat, the short answer is a crane and a truck. We're going to put some wheels and axles or something like that under the back third of the boat, and then I'm thinking that we'll get a crane to put some straps. The crane will be out there, slightly side onto the shed. It'll put a strap under this front section to take the weight of the front. Wheel the boat forward out of the shed. When it gets to the right position, we'll put blocks under the front. Then the crane can release that strap. It can re-maneuver itself into the right position for picking the boat up. The semi-trailer, I think you guys, certainly in the States, guys call them big rigs or 18-wheelers. That will back in here. Crane will pick the boat up, swing it round, put it down onto the truck, and then we take the truck probably down to a place called Hindmarsh Island, which is about an hour and a half from here. Good main roads, freeway, etc. And they have a big travel lift. For those of you who don't know, most of you will, but a travel lift is just a big square frame on wheels that can pick a boat up, drives out over big concrete ramps and just lowers the boat down into the water. So that's how we're going to do it. Short answer is just a crane and a truck. I've had the truck driver here in the early stages of the build to make sure that everything's okay, that we can get out of here. We live in a really tight, hilly area, lots of narrow winding streets, but we're very fortunate that there is access from our property with only one difficult corner, and then we're onto a main road, and from there it's freeway pretty much all the way down to the marina where the travel lift is.
Okay.
Alrighty, onward and upward, on to the next one.
Are you going to ballast the boat?
Okay, short answer is no. I don't think I'll need to. However, there are plenty of spaces and cavities and areas at the bottom of the boat where I could ballast it if necessary. The reason I say no is because the 30-foot boat, or the 30-foot version of this that I built, I didn't have to ballast at all, and it was lighter at the bottom than this is. This boat, if you can hear that, it's Maple in the distance. She can see us and she wants to come and join us, but she can't. So there's a lot of weight at the bottom of this boat. We have 3 layers of 12mm ply. Then we have that honeycombing or framing, which is little squares of 400 apart through the bottom. So there's a lot of weight there. Then we have another layer of 12mm, which is the floor. And then on the top surface of that floor, we have another layer of 12mm hardwood. So just that gives us 5 layers of 12mm, plus you call it a 6th layer if you count the honeycombing in between. Plus I've got stainless steel skids on the bottom of the boat, just as scratch protectors, and some hardwood decking planks that run along the bottom of the boat, also as skids. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a lot of weight in that. So I will be really surprised if we need any ballast. If we do, I can put it in. Next question.
Okay. What are the regulations regarding registering the boat?
Okay, this kind of continues on from the ballast question. You know, can you just build a boat, chuck it in the river and just hope it doesn't sink? You used to be able to do that until about 10 years ago. You could build anything, register it, and it was your problem if it sunk. But now there are regulations in place that any boat over 15 metres, which this is, 16.3 or 0.2 or something, you have to have a builder's plate put on the boat by someone who knows what they're doing. And being over 15 metres, it has to have a physical incline or stability test. If you don't know what that is, it's pretty simple. Once the boat is launched, a marine surveyor comes along and they set up a pendulum on the boat that gives them particular measurements and things. I think they use a crane or something, and they put weights all along the side of the boat. They lift those weights off, and they take a measure of how much the boat rocks, how long it takes comes back to centre, and just by putting the weights on the side, they also see how much the boat leans, and from that they can gauge the stability of the boat, how many, the capacity for people, etc. And so that's what we do. When we do move the boat out of the shed down to the marina, the first thing we do is to take it to one of the concrete jetties and get the marine surveyor to come along and do the full incline test. After that, we get the builder's plate put on it, which a marine architect has all the measurements of my boat, all the main ones, and then from there he will do the builder's plate. So the short answer is, to register the boat we need a builder's plate, which is done by a marine architect and surveyor. He gathers his information from all the measurements, including the incline stability test. From there, you can register the boat. We have, in South Australia, we have to put on what's called a HIN number, which is a hull identification number. That's just to do with theft and that sort of thing. Once the boat is ready for registration, you've got the builder's plate. Most of the marine shops or boat shops will have somebody that can come and do the HIN plate. It's a little aluminium plate, and there's actually 2 plates. They'll put one on the transom, so that can be identified easily, and another one they put somewhere internally that even I don't know about. They hide that in the boat up under a cupboard or somewhere, and that's noted in the registration department. So if the boat is ever stolen and you say, oh, that's my boat, somebody stole it, they can look up the information and go and find that plate and say, oh yes, it is. I mean, of course, somebody steals your boat, we try and find that plate and get rid of it, etc. But it's just a bit of a way of trying to protect the boat. So that's what happens. Builder's plate, hen plate, stability test, registration, and then we're good to go. No special license required here, just along South Australia, just a boat license, which you need for any boat with an engine, even if it's a little dinghy with a 5 horsepower on it, you need a boat license.
Unless you drive a really big houseboat.
Oh, that's another story. Look, yeah, Amanda's quite right. The tourism have got around, tourism here, you know, you can get away with anything. And so the big houseboats we have here, which, you know, like 60, 70 footers, 2-story, can take 20 people with multiple berths, and they've got, what do you call them, hot tubs and all that sort of stuff in them. Massive, massive boats that only cruise along at 4 knots, because that's what houseboats do. However, you don't need a boat license for one of those. As long as you have a car license, you can go and hire a houseboat, and you can take all these people out on it for a week, no questions asked, no license required. But if you've been at sea for 20 years and you live aboard your boat and you know everything there is about sailing and motors and driving boats and safety, and you're a lifesaver and all that stuff, if you've got a little inflatable dinghy with a 2 horsepower outboard on it, you need a boat license. Go figure.
Yeah.
That's bureaucracy. We move on.
Okay, so how will you be waterproofing the hatches?
Okay, hatches, what have we got? I've only got, we've got a couple of hatches at the front and the ones at the back where the engines are. Where the engines are, there's no waterproofing required because that's all self-draining, so water can just go through and drain out. So there's only a few places I need to waterproof them. To try and keep as much water out as possible, you can use surgical rubber tubing, which is great to put around the corner, the inside corner of where the hatch closes. That makes a really good seal because it's a soft, sort of squishy rubber, very durable, and that makes a good seal. But the real answer is the hatches that need to remain completely dry will have an aluminium channel around the inside of the hatch with a hose that drains out, which is what most boats have. I haven't made those up yet. It'll just be a profile that sits under where the hatch opens, and they'll be self-draining.
Okay, so what colour scheme are you going to go with?
Oh well, ta-da! Colour scheme. Amanda and I have a lot of talks about this, and Amanda, of course, being a designer, is great with all of that stuff. But we have to factor in a few things. There's a reason why most of this style of boat on the river here, and in fact this part of the country, are white, or predominantly white. And it's because in summer it gets so hot that you don't want to cook the boat. And I did have a boat years ago that had a very light grey deck, and on a day of about 30 degrees, which I'm assuming is around, we'll put it on the screen, I think it's about 70 degrees or something in Fahrenheit, but 30 degrees Celsius, you could not walk on the deck in bare feet. It was that hot. Yeah. You couldn't put your hand on it. And I thought, well, what is that doing to the timber underneath, and what is that doing to the boat? And so that's why all the boats here have, soft white or cream decks, and then on a 40-degree day, you can walk on those with bare feet, no problem. And then the same applies for the superstructure and the side of the boat. I've considered doing some smoky grey or some sage green on the hull or something really interesting and on the superstructure, but as soon as you wander away from basic white, the boat's going to heat up on the hot days. And if I get scratches and things, you have to match that paint, if you're doing a paint patch. So I guess the short answer is we're probably going to go white whale. In other words, completely white the whole thing, but that will be broken up by coloured awnings at the back, probably.
I don't know yet.
Well, we don't know, but certainly by some dark lines and by stainless steel and some timber. So the boat will have a black anti-foul line along the bottom, which you see, because you see above the water a strip of black about that much. Then along the gunnels, there'll be a nice thick gunnel running along here. That'll be black. So you have a black line here, lovely white hull, black line along here, stainless steel portholes, which are going to look great. Above the portholes, either stainless railing or stainless and varnished timber. Bright work along there, so you get those lovely highlights. We're going to have a safety rail around the outside of the boat. The front section going back to the wheelhouse doors will be stainless steel, and of course that will have things on it like fenders and some maybe life rings and things, so that breaks the colour up. Wheelhouse doors should be a bright work, varnish finish, they'll look fabulous. And then from the wheelhouse doors back, we'll have stainless steel stanchions, but the railing top will be a lovely varnished timber rail running back. So you're going to have these black lines, highlights of stainless steel and timber all the way to the back of the boat.
Yeah.
Of course, the handrails at the top, stainless steel cleats and bollards, etc. to break it up.
Yeah.
So short answer is white and black. There's some coloured awnings, which I don't know what colour they're going to be yet.
Well,
But we'll let you know.
It's going to be a classic aesthetic. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, and then at the same time, being on the river, choosing a colour scheme that ties in naturally with the environment. We're not on the
Yeah.
sea.
It's a very
Marine
soft
blue,
environment.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not marine blues, and
Yeah.
that we're not on the ocean. This is all about the eucalyptus trees and the natural environment of South Australia. So
Yeah.
tying in with what looks natural.
The eucalyptus are our gum trees that you always see on our property, and they're well, you can say a eucalyptus green, but we could describe it as a very soft olive or sage green, very soft, and they are the colours of our native environment and up the river. The river itself, with the slow-flowing river, I'm not going to say it's green because it's not that dirty, but it does have a muddiness to it, which can give you that sort of greeny, not really brown, but soft colours. And so, as Amanda says, a lot of the old river boats, they went for soft greens and creams. Some of them went maroon, etc. But it wasn't very often that the old river boats went for the navy blue like the ocean. That's a sea colour. So we won't be doing navy blue. It's all right, Maple. We're nearly done.
We'll have to get in.
Yeah.
But we didn't put in.
Hang on. I'll just show you. Maple is watching. Here we go. I'm just going to go over and say, it's all right, Maple. We're not going to take too much longer, sweetheart. There you are under the fence. Hello, darling. We're just doing a Q&A. We're doing a Q&A, and I know you're missing us, but we won't be long. All right. We'll see you shortly. I had to do that. She's been waiting there so patiently. She's been so good lately, and yeah. All right, here we go. I'll turn the camera back around to the better looking half of the two of us. Here we go. Okay, so and is that the end finally?
Regarding the plan of the boat, which we haven't put in. It's still going.
Oh, okay.
We were talking about
Some people have asked. Can they buy the plans of the boat? Where do they get them, etc. There are no plans. This is a one-off build, completely out of my head, using my experience of what I like. So the plans for me, I did a couple of drawings, and then I made the balsa wood model that you guys have all seen, as I did for my last boat. And then I from the scale model, I just scale that up and build the boat. There are no plans, and yeah, there are no plans. but it's thought out. Sorry, I'll just say that I did take. I mean, I'm not just throwing things together. I took my scale model to a marine surveyor, a leading government marine surveyor. He had just retired here in South Australia. I showed him the model and all my construction methods, all my spacings of where I was putting all that honeycombing, the bulkheads, how all the furniture in the boat was part of the strength and the structure. Went through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and he was completely happy with it and had no issues with any of it at all. So it's not like I did pull it out of my head, but I ran it through people who knew what they were doing to make sure that I hadn't missed any structural areas or anything like that.
Are you going to utilise the top of the boat?
Good question. Top of the boat. During the design process, at one stage, we were going to have internal stairs behind the helm going up through a hatch onto the saloon roof and have a second helm station there. And then we canned that idea and thought the boat's too skinny to do that, it's just not going to work, etc. And now that we're further down the track, I'm glad we made that decision. However, we can still utilise the top of the boat and do that, but access will be from a stainless ladder on the side of the boat, just forward of the aft cabin, and it should be probably a stainless ladder that we can kick out like that to get a little bit of angle, probably only 4 steps to get up onto that roof. And I'm going to put a second helm there, so It'll be designed really just for 2 people. I don't want to have a lot of weight up the top of the boat. I'm sure if it was a really quiet day, and you'd probably put 4 people up there, but it'll be designed really for 2 people with a couple of light chairs, a couple of cane chairs or aluminium, with a nice little helm, no instruments, purely the steering wheel, throttle, forward and back. That's it. Not even being able to turn it on and off from up there, that'll be from down below. So there's nothing nicer than on a lovely day on the river, going along quietly, sitting up on top of your boat. You get that lovely view out over the top of the riverbank, and you can see a lot further. Probably have a little canvas bimini over the top of us for shade. So yeah, that's the plan. Second helm, and that will have stainless steel railing around it. So the railing will probably cover half the saloon roof. So just a nice little area, enough for perhaps from 2 to 4 people to sit there and chuff along quietly.
Yeah, we had that on Guardian, and it was amazing.
We did have it on Guardian, and yeah, that was
awesome.
amazing.
Okay, slight change. Question is, will you continue the YouTube channel after you launch the boat?
Yep, we probably will. You know, it's great fun making these videos, and I mean, they'll change because they'll shift from construction to using the boat, our environment, exploring the river, what we do here in Australia when we're in the Murray River. You know, the river is the 3rd largest river, longest river in the world, next to the Amazon and the Nile. It is 3,000 kilometres long, and there's about 2,000 kilometres of that are navigable. We probably won't go that full distance. We've been 500 kilometres up the river from here, which took us right up to the border of Victoria, which is our neighbouring state. And oh my goodness, look, when we get to do that, the river changes up there. It's amazing, you know, old forest growth. You rarely see another boat up there. The wildlife is fantastic. So the short answer is yes. We're going to explore the river, as Amanda and I have done for years, all different areas, and we're going to try and film that and show, you know, how we go about planning a trip, where we go, what we do, how we moor, just the wildlife, whatever happens, you know, what Maple does up the river. And yeah, I think we will continue that if you guys would like to see it, you know. I mean, let us know. You might think that's as boring as, I can't say it, as boring as bat, you know, but as bat poop. But yeah, why not?
Speaking of Maple, someone wants to know how's she doing.
Okay, you guys know Maple got poisoned recently. Our next door neighbours, lovely people, they went away for a week or so, and on a whim forgot that they had some plants on their front porch, and they just asked us if we could just water those, you know, while they were away. And they're walking distance from us, they're a few hundred metres away, and so I went down to water the plants on their front porch a couple of times, and the second time I went down there I thought, oh, there's nobody there, I'll just take Maple for a walk with me. So I walked her down there just on the short lead, and I never take Maple down there, so they didn't know I would have the dog there. And they, being up in the hills here this season, we get a lot of fruit rats and things around, and they're really annoying. And these guys have had rats coming up around the house, along with seeing a snake, a deadly snake around the house, and the snakes only come for the rats. Rats come for fruit, and the snakes come for the rats, and these guys have got young children, so they were desperately trying to get rid of the rats. Without really thinking, my friend next door put out some rat baits along the side of the house, but he didn't put them in those plastic traps, and so they were exposed. I didn't know about that. I filled up the watering can at their tap beside the house. I had Maple with me. I didn't see her eat one of the baits, but she ate a full one of those rat baits, and so got poisoned. Next morning, she was really ill, threw up this bright blue vomit and everything. It was horrible. And anyway, she was on 4 weeks of treatment to save her, and she's back to normal, 100%, bouncing around like a young pup should, and she's all good, thank you very much. Bright and sprightly, annoying the shit out of me. Annoying the beep out of me, but no, she's great. Thank you for asking.
And the final question is, when do you expect to finish the boat?
Okay, that's the final question. Woo! When do we expect to finish the boat? Look, I'm one of these people that I take on large projects and I get stuck into them, but I rarely put a time frame on anything, especially boat building, because ask any boat builder, they always take longer than you expect. However, I am on the tail end of this project, and I'm hoping It's just come into June, haven't we?
Yes,
June.
start of June.
Yep, it's the 1st or 2nd of June or something today. I am really hoping to get this boat in the water by Christmas. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. I'll just keep going till it's done. But it's something to aim for, and I should get close to that. So it really depends on how hard I work, if I can motivate myself to get stuck into it every day, because you guys are seeing this build as it unfolds. I mean, it's the 2nd of June today?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2nd of June today, you're going to see this in a couple of days' time. I'm not one of these guys that does lots of videos months ahead and all that. You're seeing it as it happens. I come in after working on the boat all day, I go and have a shower and change and relax. I go straight into the studio, download any footage I got, and I try and edit it, and I do my best to try and get a video out each week. So, yeah, that's it. So, alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learnt heaps today. I'm going to end the video now because it's getting really cold.
I'm going to go get knee surgery.
Amanda's going in for knee surgery in about 2 hours' time because she's torn her meniscus. I'm the one working on the boat, and she tore her meniscus at Pilates. How's that?
I know.
Anyway, so I'm going to end the video, but look, as usual, thank you for subscribing, thank you for your questions, thank you for watching. You really don't know how much your interaction helps keep me motivated. It really, really does. You know, some days I feel like I don't want to do anything. Obviously, it's a big project, and then I get comments from you guys, mostly compliments, which are fantastic, and it just keeps me going. I'm supposed to say, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It's free and good fun. You can hit the notification bell, which means that every time I put a video up, it'll just send you a notification going, oh, there's a new video up. And I really appreciate it. Thank you, Amanda, for joining me on this cold day to come out here and sit in the shed. Yep, and thanks for interrupting your preparation for going to the I'm about to take her to the hospital for knee surgery. Thanks for that. We're going to end the video, and I'm going to see you guys, or you see this on Friday. It's Tuesday today, and I better go and start doing some editing. We'll see you soon, folks. Thanks for watching. Bye.